What's going on, motherfuckers? MOD back with another goddamn fucking mobile video, walk and talk video. Sunday, February 25th, 2024. Apologies for the tiny dog over here. Anyway, newest podcast is out for channel members. All of you awesome MOD Elite VIPs can go check out the brand new exclusive podcast, The Seed, episode 47, The History of Possessed, the Godfathers of Death Metal. And I worked really hard on that one. It's about 30 minutes long. You guys won't regret it. And I'm going to be a lot more diligent about putting those out for you guys once a month. I apologize that it's been every 3 months at the moment. I'm going to try to get those out every 4 weeks. I'm going to make that promise to you fucking guys and get those out every month. So I think for the next one I'm going to cover the history of Discharge or the Exploited, because I think a lot of you fuckers would appreciate me covering some crossover thrash as well. And Discharge and the Exploited are two of my favorite crossover bands, definitely, along with Dirty Rotten Imbeciles, Suicidal Tendencies, Cro-Mags, etc. So, also want to give some awesome shout outs to That Goat Metal Show with Barry and Rich, the silent producer, Mordred Red, Lucifer, Shredbeard, Oath to the Goat podcast, my bro Juan, and Realms of Metal, Ed Romero. So, and I'll bring up the merch at the end of the video. Thank you to everybody who bought merch. Thank you to all channel members. You guys fucking rule. So tonight's video is going to be about, does metal have rules and creeds? And the answer is yes. And I know there's going to be people out here that are like, no, there's no such thing as rules in metal. Yes, there is. And I'm going to get to every genre's rules and the sacred essence of each genre as well. Every genre was sacred at one point, right? Before this infection of fucking normal looking white belt Spock rocker kids with their gauges and their meaningless anime tattoos and neck flowers and neck flower tattoos and all that fucking pussy shit. And yes, metal does have rules and creeds as to what constitutes what metal is. And we're going to start with traditional metal because that's where it all began. And in the early days, traditional metal was really a genre that embraced true rebellion, and it does. The old stuff does. I mean, just look at those dudes. I mean, they take a look at a band like Grim Reaper. I mean, they were wearing bullet belts and spandex, just as an example. Then you look at bands like Judas Priest and Dio, Black Sabbath, fucking Diamond Head, fucking, who else? There's tons of bands. New wave British heavy metal, right? Girl School. And they all looked metal. But not only did they look it, they also had the attitude and the lifestyle to back it up. They had the pissed off attitude. Motorhead's another one. I mean, look at how awesome they fucking looked. And the attitude of Motorhead was live fast, die hard, Live loud, life on the edge. And Lemmy pushed those boundaries, and so did Ozzy and a bunch of other crazy drug-fueled maniacs of that time. But traditional metal was really about the spirit of rebellion and something very, very different, at least in its earliest forms, and to this day still carries a lot of those traditions. Depends on the band. If you look at the new wave of traditional heavy metal, I mean, those dudes look like traditional metal dudes. They got the long hair, the denim. Some of them wear bullet belts. That's not exclusive to black metal, by the way. Some of them have, some of them wear chains, some don't. Some of them have, you know, some spikes and studs, or studs and stuff like that. Spikes are more black metal or dark death metal stuff. But you look at those bands, I mean, they all looked different. They were all embracing the rule. And the rule is that if you're going to call yourself metal, you better look the part, you better walk the walk, and you better embrace it if you want to be taken seriously. And then we fast forward into speed and thrash, and those all have their own rules and look and sound and aesthetics. And those dudes even cranked it up further. You know, the speed metal is basically heavy metal sped up. That's really what it is. With with fantasy-driven themes and stuff like that, and talk about certain dark subject matters. Now there's a bit more room for positivity in speed metal and traditional metal, which I thoroughly appreciate, but they have their own rules. You don't go and bring in something like fucking, you know, singing about fucking white picket fences or how much you love your fucking wife, or, you know, that type of shit. Though there's certain types of lyrical themes that don't fit in genres, and there's certain types of just attitudes that don't fit in there. So you're not going to be sitting there singing about kitty cats and puppy dogs and rainbows and fucking blue skies and flowers, you know, if you're playing metal. And even traditional, I mean, we're talking about traditional and speed metal. And those bands were very, very aggressive, you know, for their time, especially speed metal bands, which I still love to this day. Lots of great speed metal out there. And then, you know, we're going to move into thrash too here, because that's another one that has its own rules and creeds and attitude. And these are all separate from each other. Now the thrash stuff is definitely, most of the people in thrash are they have a very punk attitude, a very hardcore punk lifestyle attitude. They're always partying, they're always drinking. Most of the time, I'm not saying they're alcoholics, but they like to party, and they like to rail against the man as much as possible. They like to rail against society as much as possible. At least the true thrashers do. And there is a new wave of thrash metal as well, which is pretty good stuff. Some pretty good shit out there. But thrash really embraced that rebellion and those creeds and those rules early on. Sorry about the overcompensating dick fuckwad in the truck who obviously has a small penis, because why do you need to drive something that loud and obnoxious? Fucking micro machine cock. Anyway, so the thrash metal genre had its own rules and creeds and look and sound, which was a very pissed off, fuck you, non-conformist, anti-PC, anti-SJW themes and approach and ideologies, which was cool, and I still like that. I still love hanging out with thrashers. They're pretty cool people. And then we're going to talk about moving to death metal now, which definitely took these ideas to new heights. It took it to new extremes when it came to the look, the sound, the imagery, and the rules of death metal were that you had to have a very violent, visceral attitude. And usually bands were singing about, you know, violence, gore. Some of them talked about hate. Not many of them, but some of them did. And then you had bands like Death and Possessed starting it off, Necrophagia, Autopsy, Obituary, Morbid Angel, Sadist. Nobody talks about them enough. Bands like that were starting out in the first wave, and they were extremely fucking pissed off people Possessed still is. Autopsy still is. Necrophagia, by the way, I think they're putting out an unreleased album very soon. Necrophagia and Possessed are my two favorite old school death metal bands, along with Autopsy. Yeah, Death in there too, like I said, which was Mantis before, but those bands all had their own creeds and rules. And around this time is when black metal came into the fold. This was 1984 with the Bathory self-titled debut record. And that's when things really went to new extremes. And you had Sarcophago and Mayhem as well. Celtic Frost. Even though I don't consider Celtic Frost as much of a black metal band as I do Bathory, but they're still in there. They're still proto-black metal. And I know people say, what about King Diamond and Merciful Fate? That's heavy metal with operatic vocals and music. Sorry, but it is. It's not black metal. Neither is Venom. We've had this discussion. If you think Venom's black metal, that's great. I don't. End of story. So, and the rules and creeds are even more. Some fucking gay music playing here at this cycle shop. I don't know why they have the radio playing outside all the time, but whatever. So black metal really took those concepts of creeds and rules and rebellion a lot more seriously than every other genre. The corpse paint, the spikes, the chains, the violent self-mutilation, which started with Dead, the upside-down crosses, the pig heads, the crazy aesthetics in the stage shows, pyrotechnics, all that cool shit, man. Great stuff. But those bands had even more strict rules and creeds of what was acceptable and what wasn't. And during those times, there was a lot of controversy between metal factions, groups of metalheads, thrashers, death metal people, fucking black metal people, the power metal, traditional speed metal crowds, which were kind of all intermixed, because those genres are a little bit, they're all pretty familiar, power metal, speed metal, and traditional metal, in terms of lyrical themes and style, stuff like that, right? So, but here's how it is to me. You can't look like you work at Starbucks and make black metal. Not only that, but you can't make it clean. And it can't be something that is easily digestible or accessible to the masses. That was the entire point of the genre's inception, was to rail against the rampant commercial rise of the other genres. And I'm not saying the other genres weren't responsible for some of these rules and creeds and imagery, because they were. Each genre has its own image and its own way of being. But black metal is the most serious, the most devoted, the most strict, and the most closed-minded. And for people who are outside of that understanding, they look at us like we're closed-minded idiots. They look at us like we're, well, you don't appreciate other things and this and that, and it's whatever. I mean, I pay that no attention. Because those creeds and rules in metal, death thrash, traditional power speed, and black metal, and doom, there's creeds and rules for doom too, doom metal, and sludge and stuff. I'll talk about that before, but you can't intermix these things. And what I mean by that is you can't be somebody who believes that authoritarianism is good and play black metal. You can't believe that partying and socializing and loving humanity it can be part of your lifestyle if you're black metal. Okay, now if you're somebody from a different faction, whatever. But BM is about hatred and intolerance in the center. That's all it's for the most part. Okay, so those rules and creeds are there for a reason. And those are there to protect the genre's purity and spirit and its stance and its complete position and complete total defiance and opposition to everything that resembles human society. And in fact, the very essence of what it means to be human. And that is something that is very, very important to the genre's flourish. For the genre to flourish, because when you got all this post-BM Black Days fucking garbage, fucking poser shit, are people trying to make that music more accessible, you end up with post-BM and Black Days. You end up with deathcore and metalcore. And you end up with post genres as well, which are all fucking complete shit. So these rules and creeds are in place for a reason. The imagery, the look of each faction of metalhead, they're all there for a reason. Everything is there for a very, very good reason. So these rules and creeds are very important. And if they're abandoned, then the erosion of the sacred essence of those genres and what it means to be metal get completely fucking destroyed in favor of accessibility, commercialism, and appealing to masses. That's not what it's about. That's never what it's going to be about for me, and I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. But those creeds and rules are there for a fucking reason.